folks. Thanks for joining me for another video on my YouTube channel. It is Kim Schofield. Today we are talking about using small images on cards when making cards. So it's something that I struggle with, and there's a lot of cute and small images out there, and sometimes I just don't know what to do with them. So this was a good challenge for me to come up with 4 different cards on using these small images. So I am using a brand new, it's not brand new, relatively new stamp set from Christina Warner. Absolutely adorable, called Breakfast Buddies. Super cute, multi-layer stamp set, and so a bunch of images. You'll use 3 colors to create the image. They're super cute. So my first technique, I'm going to call it a spotlight technique. So I am using one image multiple times on these little inch cubes, and those are going to be on my card front. So I just hand cut these. You could die cut them, not hand cut, but I just used a paper trimmer to cut them out inch by inch, and then I do have them backed with some of my cardstock. You can see 1 1/4 by 1 1/4 over there on the right hand side. You can kind of see what that looks like there, one of those strawberries that have already been stamped. So you could do the entire strawberry, and I don't know why I thought doing just a little portion would be fun, but you could do that also, like Lawn Fawn, and who's the other company? Oh, Mama Elephant. If you had little faces, some of them have cute little faces. You could do those, like peeking up from the, bottom part of the little piece of cardstock there. That would be really cute. But that's why I think that's kind of what I was thinking about when I went ahead and did these four little squares with little pieces of the strawberries. So I wanted to add a little bit something to the background because these are very small. So I've got a small image, a little teeny tiny square, so it's even smaller. And so you absolutely could just leave your cardstock plain, stamp a sentiment on the cardstock, but I decided I wanted to add a little design. So I am using a friendship background die stamp from, not a die, I called it a die, it's just a background stamp from Simon Says Stamp. I'm holding my cardstock down with a little bit of low-tack tape just because, this is covering the entire card, so I don't really have an opportunity to put my magnet there to hold my paper in place. And can't put it down in the corner because, well, I guess I could move my stamp over. Not really. I don't have one of the big Misties, so I need to get one. I only have the mini. So when you do a big stamp like this, you need a bigger stamp platform. So I'm just going over this a couple of times just to, make sure that all of the areas are covered and well stamped. I am using some Altenew ink pads, which I love these things. You can buy them in the pack. They have 4 colors, so all the colors coordinate, which are really great if you're using layering stamps like I am today. And I will note too, you'll see this a few times throughout the video, but Altenew stamps, if you stamp them once, it'll be one color. If you stamp it 3 times, it'll be another color. So these ink cubes can go a long way. So using my Altenew double-sided tape, you can use whatever brand you have. I just want to pop that up a little bit because I do have my little inch squares backed by the same color cardstock. So just don't want to have a little bit of differentiation there. You could also do a embossing folder, so you can emboss that background as well on the card base. I probably would not use a 3D embossing folder. I think it might be a little too thick. But if you just did a regular one, I think that would be a great way to dress up the background as well. Or you can just leave it plain and, like I said, just stamp the sentiment directly onto the front of the card. And so I'm just, figuring out which way I want my strawberries to go and getting those adhered down to the card base front. The other thing that would be fun is if you you stamp the strawberry and then die cut the strawberries out and then pop those up on the 4 little squares, that would be a good idea on how to highlight, do kind of like a little bit of highlight stamping, repetitive stamping for this type of card. So I went ahead, this set includes some fun sentiments. I think this says love you very much. So I like the little punny sentiment. And I did do the die cutting first because I don't know, it's hard for me to line up the die after I stamp. Not that I don't also do that, but I usually try to do, do the die cutting first, put it back into the paper you die cut it out of, and then do your stamping. It lines up a little bit better that way usually. So I am adhering that with some tailored expressions, these long, thin strips. They are so great for sentiments. They're the perfect size. You don't have to like cut your foam tape, in half and try to make it smaller. So I love that. So I opted to go with my sentiment right in the middle of my card. And that pretty much finishes up card 1. So the next one we have is the next technique is to duplicate how many times you stamp an image. So that could be all over a background, which you might see later in the video, or it could be stamping something multiple times. And then as you see with my stack of pancakes, using that to basically, instead of it being just this one small pancake image, it's now a larger image and it takes up more space on a card. So that is my second suggestion for using small images. Stamp the same one multiple times and either gather them together or they could be scattered out in a background. I'd also like to mention that this is the first time I have used Catherine Pool inks, and they are the bomb. So if you've never used these ink pads, well, just run out and get yourself some because they're fantastic. I always hold off on getting more inks because I have a ton, and but man, they are like juicy and the coverage is amazing and the colors are great. So same thing, you can kind of buy color families from her. They're very similar and work wonderful for doing this type of technique. So where you have an image that has multiple colors together. So I stamped a whole bunch of those pancake stacks, and then I'm going to stack the pancake stacks. So I did die cut. I used a postage die to cut out that little panel. And I'm just lining this up to make sure that where I stamp my image, it's well centered with where the pancakes are and the top of the, everything's got to be even. It's got to fit in there really well. So I just want to make sure that's done first. I am using this Versa, I forget the name of this ink. I'll put it in the description. This is the best black ink you'll ever use. So if you don't have it, buy it. You'll love it, along with Catherine Pool ink. So now I'm just going to go ahead and stack those up. I didn't really have to, fully stamp the pancake with the syrup and the butter because you're not going to see it, but I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with it. So everything got stamped and it worked out just fine. And so now you can see instead of one pancake stack, which you could do, I think a little highlight of color behind one pancake stack on a panel like I have die cut could be very cute. But 3 stacks of pancakes is better. And that, fills the white space a little bit better for me. So using my Score Pal, does anybody use this anymore? Raise your hand, leave me a comment if you use this anymore. Literally, this is the only thing that I use it for. And I've had this thing for like 20 years, I think, or something. I don't know. However long it's been, I've had it for a long time. So just plain white cardstock for this. Card base. Some double-sided tape, of course, so I can pop up that panel. Everything popped up, I think, it gives it a little dimension. It's a good thing. And this is a super quick, clean, and simple card. Even your little critters from Lawn Fawn, you could stack them one on top of each other, which would be fun. So my third technique is to create a scene. And do you know how great it is with this stamp set to create a scene? Because she has little tiny faces for all of the little breakfast goodies. Little faces on your eggs. Fantastic. So here's where I'm going to show you how this Altenew ink gets darker when you stamp it. Watch this. We're going to do one time. You can barely tell. I'm using the same ink, by the way, as in the background, as in the white of the egg. Look at that, 3 times versus 1. So I'm using 1 color of ink, and I'm basically getting 2 to 3 colors of that same blue. I'm sorry about my head there. When you're doing these layering stamps, you really kind of do need to be right over, like, you know, your head needs to be right over. So look at the difference in that. 1 ink cube. It's good stuff. I love it. And so I only stamped, you know, the first time I only stamped 1 because you don't want a really blue egg white, you know. So having a hard time finding a good color. I didn't have anything in my stash. Catherine Pula might have some. Might have to check that out. So we've got bacon. Oh my gosh. The images are so cute. The coffee cup is my favorite, which, by the way, when you get to the coffee cup and you see how cute the image is, you're going to see you could use that to stack coffee cups just like I stacked the pancakes. So keep that in mind. Something else I want to mention, which you're going to see on the very last slide of my video, is I have started an Etsy store and am getting rid of a lot of stuff. It's old product. It is generally used, although some not much. There are also some brand new things in the Etsy store that either I've purchased or I've been gifted or had from a design team, and they haven't been used. So prices in the Etsy store are $5 to $15, and that probably will be it. And that could be for, you know, an entire stamp set. It might be $5, but it is used, so you have to remember that. But they're all good quality. Forgive my head again. I swear that I get, you know, I go through the video and I get them all out, and I'm still missing them. Anyway, so Etsy store, I've got stamp sets from Sweet and Sassy, which is now Creative Worship Stamps, maybe. And Wendy Vecchi, Tim Holtz. I have stuff in there from art from Marlene. Oh gosh. There will be some, they're not in there yet. There'll be some dies in there. Forgive my head again. There'll be some dies. Some punches. I have some Stampin' Up! Punches that are going to be in there. So there's almost 100 items in there right now in the shop. Way more to go. Look how cute that coffee pot is. So keep an eye out on that last slide for the address, or you can just go to Etsy and search for Paper Petals, and you will find the store. So here come the faces. You're not even ready for how cute this is. She's got 3 different little faces. Look at how sweet. Little smiling with the little eyes closed and stuff. I just love it. So now I am die cutting them, breaking my rule of die cutting first, but I think it worked out okay. And you will see what we end up with. They're just absolutely adorable. But they are small, and I struggle with small little things like this. What do I do with them? I never know what to do. So we're going to create a scene, and we are going to do that using a cloud stencil that I made myself. I'm quite sure that I have an actual one somewhere, but I can't find it. So I just used a die cut and made my own. And I'm just using some oxide ink and a blending brush. And, you know, I don't want to go too high. You'll kind of see I'm not bringing that color way up because I'm going to do some overlapping. So it's okay that a little bit of the blue might go into where the cloud is. You know, you kind of want that. It mimics that idea of clouds covering and, you know, different textures and things like that, the way a sky would look, right? So it's really, you can just have fun with this. You know what else would be really cute is if, and I thought about it for this card, if you did a rainbow cloud background. That would be super cute. But I don't know if that would compete too much with my little colorful images. But if you had one image or, you know, some little critters that you wanted to make, into a scene or something. There's just so many options, and there's so many great stencils to create backgrounds like this. So mine was pretty simple, but you could go hog wild with this stuff. So this is a waffle flower stencil set that does have some individual dies, and then it also has these different grasses. So one is straight across. I'm using this one has a slight bend in the middle, like it's a hill. Super, quick and easy, especially those oxides blend so well. So I'm just getting that down, and you'll see I end up doing a little die cut hill in here as well. So I end up putting a little bit more grass. You can see there behind, a little bit lighter. And I did this die cut hill. This is a die cut from a set from Simon Says Stamp. And I started with stamping my sentiment directly on there. And then you'll see what happens. So now I'm going to add my little legs, because these not only have little faces, but they have tiny little legs and tiny little arms. It's the cutest thing ever. So I've got my little hill die cut there just so I can see, where everything is going to be laid out. So it's kind of challenging with these little tiny stamps. It's a little bit of guessing, but I'm just picking them up as I go. And so that, they kind of fall over a little easily because they're so tiny, and they kept sticking to my fingers. But you'll see I finally get it there, get the right placement, and then I can go ahead and take everything off once I decide where, pretty much everything is going to go. And so the Misty is great. I've got a little bit of a sticky mat there to hold everything in place. So I'm going to go ahead and use black on all of those things and get those stamped. And then you will see when I open the door what happens. My sentiment is crooked. Never fear. I came up with a solution that was even better. So I popped up my hill a little bit because some of these items are going to fit just a little bit under. And then I can go ahead and add my, my coffee cup, my little breakfast buddy friends that are walking along in the meadow. So I'm going to do my egg flat because I want to pop up the bacon, and the bacon will kind of go over a little bit of the egg. So, but you can do arms. She has arms in this set that, you can put 2 arms on them. So cute. And so what I ended up doing was die cutting the sentiment because it was crooked, which, made me want to faint. Of course, after you do the whole thing. But I actually like the sentiment die cut better because you can see it much better. And then I decided to add a few more clouds. So these are die cut clouds. This is a really old Sweet and Sassy set. But I kind of like the idea of doing a little bit more up in the background. And so the die cut cloud set was kind of like a big long row, and I basically just cut them apart. And so I could layer them up like that. So one is flat, and a few have a little bit of foam tape behind them. And then I'm just going to cut off that excess and then attach that entire panel onto a card front. That I probably did use the score pal to score, but I didn't film that because that's just not that exciting for you to see me tape and, score my cardstock. So super easy on this, super cute, create little scenes. You can really get creative and have fun with that. So my last technique is, I kind of alluded to in the beginning, is to stamp your small image multiple times, and basically you're creating a background. So I have 3 different colors here of the Altenew ink. And I think I was like, yeah, why am I taping this down? I can just use my Wendy Vecchi Make Art Station. Hello. I forget about these things sometimes. So I'm not being super careful with this because to me, you're basically creating a background image, right? It's like it makes me think of wrapping paper or something, right? If you wanted to make your own wrapping paper, you could do this. And so that's all I'm doing. I'm stamping multiple times with my image across the background. I am using some craft cardstock here and just going to town with this. And this is 3 steps. So, of course, some of these little tiny images, I'm not going to get the whole thing on because, I'm way off the edge. So I could have used a little bit more. I wasn't sure if I had enough blueberries, but I think it ended up okay. So you can see with this, which is kind of interesting, you go with the mid-tone color, then you do the really dark color, and then the last color that you do on these is the highlight. So it is good to reference the packaging that tells you what order to stamp everything in. And then she also has on the stamp set itself, it's numbered and everything is grouped together, so it's really easy to see there. But I love these little blueberries. I think you could also, if you had like a bowl die cut, you could die cut some of these blueberries and put some of the blueberries and the strawberries in a bowl. I think that would be super cute too. That's another way that you could use it. So here is, I'm going in with my last color, and that's the highlight for that blueberry. Super simple. You could just go crazy with this. And you could do that with the strawberries. You could even do it with any of the images that are included with this set. It wouldn't be bad to do that. That would work. So I decided to add a little bit of extra, a little something extra to the back of this, and I am using a piercing plate, I guess. I don't really know what it's called. So it's just texture. So it's little heart design, and that adds a little bit of something extra to it, because that's all I'm doing is for this card is just making that background. And then I'm going to go ahead and use it's a pierced, rectangle to make a little bit of a smaller panel. So for some reason my die cutting machine pooped out on me there and didn't cut it completely, but super easy to snip that off. So now I have my panel completed. And then I'm going to go ahead, I did deviate from using one of the punny stamps included in the set, and I'm using another set from Christina Warner because it's a little bit bigger, and I really liked that it filled the card really well. And so I went ahead and colored up. I've die cut this twice at a pretty thick cardstock, and then I colored that up and stacked them. So I wanted to give you a little gluing technique for this very thin, delicate die cut. I put a little bit of glue on each of those straight lines that are under each of the words, and now I'm just going to use my finger and dab that all around. You could run it through a sticker maker too, but I find this works really well. And so this set has the words, and then it also has the shadow behind it. So I put that onto another piece of craft, and I colored that with the same dark ink that I used on the blueberries. So, it does have a very cute, of course, berry sentiment, which I used on the first card with the strawberries, but I wanted to do something a little different on this one, that you send it, that you're thinking about someone. And you could just do, I think small images doing multiple like this and making a background paper, design paper, is just a great way to use it. And then I just added that onto a craft card base. And that is about it. So that is 4 different ideas for you for how to use small images. Thanks so much for joining me again. As I mentioned, here's how you can contact me, my Etsy store. I'll have some pictures posted on my blog. You can follow me on Instagram. That's more my personal life, though, more than crafting. And you already know about my YouTube channel. So thanks so much for joining me today, and happy crafting. Bye.